At NTV, good morning. If you've just joined us, the hashtag is morning at NTV Uganda on Twitter and Facebook. And of course, being Women's Month, this whole month we're going to be talking about women issues. And to start it off today on Kickstarter, we're going to be talking about sexual reproductive health rights of women. Is there such a thing as safe abortions? Should it or should it not be promoted? And that's the discussion we are having this morning. And we have Miss Susan Baluka, who happens to be the Legal Officer Research and Advocacy, Human Rights Awareness and Promotion Forum. And you've been telling me that today is Zero Discrimination Day as well. So yes. I can see you're into the Women Month with full force. Yes. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So we're talking about safe abortion. That's a topic that's a very interesting one, but we all know how divided it is. One is abortion, one that is taken as an illegal practice by very many people, and no parent will tell you that they are up for it. Even the people that practice it, the doctors are doing it in corners. The people who are aborting themselves, the ladies that have been caught up in such situations, are not doing it proudly. So now when you start the discussion of it being safe, we all know where that is going to go.
Yes. Now, David, before we get into that discussion and the fact that on social media this morning we are asking you, should abortion be legalized in our country? Because as it stands, it is illegal. Now, you can go to Facebook, NTV Uganda, or you could tweet us at NTV Uganda. Now, as we talk about abortion, there are a number of women who have actually carried out abortions within the country, although it stands to be illegal. Let's take a watch at one of the ladies who shares her story about the abortions she has had.
And I have unprotected sex. Then he impregnated me and he ran away.
Most of them can afford to pay fees to the doctors, who are some of them in private clinics, some of them in private hospitals, to do safe abortions. But in most cases, you find that these doctors or these clinics where they go, they are never registered in those clinics. So that means they just go to a doctor, say, doctor, he does the job, he does the safe abortion, and you move out. You pay and move out. So the issue is that you have no evidence at all that you can live or register anywhere. That in case of any problem after abortion, you cannot have any fallback position.
Abortion contributes close to 30% to the maternal mortality in the country, and this is one area that we also need to really address, because there is no reason for us to keep hiding our heads in the sand when many of our teenage mothers and teenage young girls are losing their lives because of this unsafe abortion.
So seemingly, the minister is actually saying that, you know what, we can no longer bury our heads in the sand. We are having, maternal mortality rates, skyrocketing, and 30% of that is thanks to unsafe abortions. As a legal, person and the legal officer, a counsel at that, kindly give us the background of, this particular wave that is now, getting momentum with regards to legalizing safe abortion.
Well, it begins with what the grand norm says, which is the Constitution in this case. So the Constitution has a clause or an article in the Bill of Rights where it says that a person is not allowed to terminate the life of an unborn child, save in circumstances which may be prescribed by law. So when you go to what the law is, we have the Penal Code Act, but you see the Constitution was enacted in 1995, and yet the Penal Code Act is a law that we inherited through the colonial system. So it does have an exception which is not in line with the day-to-day or the modern-day realities. It does prohibit abortion, yes, in terms of a woman procuring the abortion herself, or even a health worker or any other person assisting her to procure the abortion, either through using particular physical implements or through use of other substances. It's prohibited. But there is an exception where a medical doctor can actually help a woman procure an abortion, but only for the purpose of saving her life, and only if he uses surgical means. Now, that kind of restriction forces a lot of women to now resort to clandestine methods of procuring abortions themselves, because then they know that the law is bad, it's not assisting them to walk up to a health center, speak to a qualified medical personnel, and actually open up to them and say, I need the services of a health worker to help me terminate this pregnancy. But it goes beyond even the law. It goes to the societal attitudes around it. It's taken that it's something that is immoral, it's something that is unacceptable, it threatens the family unit.
Is it not?
Well,
in some instances?
I would like to say that while all those sentiments might have a certain level of validity in them, I think the more important thing to consider is that in a society where people are diverse, people have different religious convictions, people have different cultural backgrounds, but also people have different realities in terms of, their social lives, their economic lives. So I think that as a society that is supposed to be democratic, it's only important that we take a step back and measure, put these issues on a weighing scale. Yes, we do have these different religious convictions which may be personal to many of us as a country, but then we also do have these realities, and we should be mindful of the fact that not everybody is going to subscribe to a particular way of looking at different issues like abortion.
So Susan, when you talk about the issue being abortion, we can no longer hide from the fact that so many people are doing it, and it has effects to it on the lady's body after that if it's not done right. But for those that are doing it on the low, as a number of people would say, what is the punishment for someone? Because as it stands still within our country, it is illegal. What would happen to someone if they're caught doing it?
If they're caught doing it, they would get arrested. And well, depending on the evidence that would be gathered by the police officers.
I have the pills, or maybe I'm in the process of taking the pills, or I could be going through the abortion at that point in time. That's evidence, right?
Yes, but in criminal law, evidence, especially for criminal cases, is on is supposed to be beyond reasonable doubt. So it's a very high standard, I must say. And the organization I work for, which is Human Rights Awareness and Promotion Forum, actually did a research into the enforcement of laws that criminalize abortion. And we actually discovered that of all the estimated 300,000 abortions that take place in this country every year,
300,000 every year?
Yes, that's the estimate according to the research that is out there. Only about 80-something cases end up with the Director of Public Prosecutions. They're the ones that actually end up on her desk to actually review and see whether or not, this case is good to go. But even then, the number of cases that actually go to trial are even fewer than that. Yeah. So, for instance, we discovered that in some of the study areas that we did when we were conducting that study, only 6 cases ended up in court in Kampala.
Wow.
In Kampala?
Yes.
I would believe there
for 5 years, between the period of 2011 to 2015. And yet every year there's an estimated 300,000 abortions that happen. That's not counting the undocumented ones, seeing as most of them actually, are done clandestinely. So then that actually goes to show you that yes, there may be a law that may seek to enforce a particular moral and religious standard in order to deter women from procuring abortions or any other persons from helping them procure those abortions. It's actually not working. And at what cost?
Right.
The lower side, our however way we look at abortion, all that aside, don't you think that the discussion on safe abortions is sort of promoting immoral behaviors, because we already have you said it yourself, 300,000, and those are the documented ones. Do you think that having a discussion on safe abortions is literally promoting immoral behaviors within us? Because if we are to look for reasons on why people should be drinking, we have very many. If the smokers will also come up with whatever reason, and yes, like you said, they have their reasons on why it should be a discussion. But then the people who smoke weed will tell you we also have our reasons. The people who are drinking will tell you, well, we have our reasons. So isn't this just literally promoting those behaviors?
Okay, well, I would like to start by saying that immorality is subjective. But when you're having a discussion about safe abortion, I would say it's more about promoting health rights for women and actually saving their lives, you know. Because when you look at the literature that is out there, the countries that have actually legalized abortion actually have statistics that don't show an increment in abortions being carried out. So there's actually no direct correlation between what the law is and the level of the abortion incident. But however, in countries where abortion is criminalized, there is a direct correlation between the criminalization of abortion and the incidence of unsafe abortions. Yeah. So in other words, the fact that abortion is legalized is not going to become some sort of contraceptive method of for women as a first option for them. You know, it's a decision. Even when you have the opportunity to access it, it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, you're going to wake up and say, I'll go for an abortion. It's good to know that you have the option if push comes to shove, and that's the option that you have left.
But Council, don't you think that we're treating a symptom instead of, you know, going to the root cause of why we're having 300,000 women procuring abortion in the country every single year? Instead of looking at the underlying issues that are making these women, that's a huge number, procure abortion. 30% of these ones actually lose their lives, according to the minister. So why shouldn't we look into that? Sensitizing the women. There's contraception. There's all these other options. There's safe sex and stuff like that. Instead of now saying that now we need to legalize abortion. And yet, what is in the provision of the law pretty much allows for, you know, safe abortion in the event that the woman's life is at danger. Shouldn't it be the other way around instead of legalizing this?
Okay, I'd like to say that I think a lot of work has been done around promoting awareness on sexual reproductive health services and contraception, and even putting in place laws and policies that deal with sexual violence that may lead to unwanted pregnancies. But you know, the problem goes beyond that, and sometimes you may find yourself in a situation where, despite the laws that are in place to protect you from rape and defilement, you are going to find yourself with an unwanted pregnancy because of the society that we live in. Yes, the law may be there to protect you, but if at that particular stage you have not been able to get the benefit of the protection of the law, where you end up getting defiled by your uncle and you can't even report and tell anybody that this is my uncle who raped me and now I'm carrying his child, you know? Where you're not able to actually say that because you're going to get stigmatized by the society despite what the law says and the fact that he can get arrested. I think you should be able to have the option of going to get an abortion, a safe abortion, because the law also allows you that. So I think that is what this is really about, maximizing protection for women. So, and removing the discrimination at all levels.
So it's just adding that caveat whereby if it's, you know, pregnancy out of, you know, rape or, you know, sexual violence, then it should be allowed, but not a blanket legalizing of safe abortion.
My view is that abortion should be legalized for any woman who feels that she needs the abortion, because sometimes it goes beyond that. I've just given one example of rape or defilement, but there's so many other reasons why a woman might seek an abortion besides those particular reasons. Yeah, some of them may be due to the fact that she's in an abusive marriage and she doesn't want to have more children in that marriage. Not necessarily because her pregnancy was as a result of rape per se, but maybe she just doesn't feel like she's in that right state of mind to have a child or more children in an abusive marriage. It's so many reasons that basically speak to the physical and mental health of a woman. So that's why I think that it should be open to any woman who needs it, such that if she makes the decision to do the abortion, then it's safe. Because if I decide, despite what the law says, I will go and get that abortion.
Okay.
But the important thing is to make sure that I'm safe.
Well, as we talk about safe abortions, one thing people will be asking, why do we even need to have abortions? It's wrong, it's illegal. But for a number of women who are having these unsafe abortions, there's hemorrhagic at the end of it, there is a ruining of their internal organs. So many things happen just because you're trying to send this fetus out that you say you do not want. You do not want this child. And people would say, but this is a child, this is a blessing. As we speak about the law, there's also society. You mentioned something which is stigmatization. A number of people, when you hear the word abortion, you're like, how can she? How dare she? That is so wrong. So if we're going to ask and say perhaps you now need to have the law in place, is our society ready for this?
I would think that actually society might be ready than they would want to admit. Because in my experience, in some of the discourses I've had, especially with students in tertiary institutions, there are quite a number of voices that come out and say, I think abortion should be legalized, especially the female students. They say, I think abortion should be legalized because I wouldn't want to see my friend going to a quack doctor because the law does not allow her to go and seek the services of an experienced health worker.
But why is the friend going to a quack doctor, especially in that, campus?
Because the environment that we have does not enable her to access information on where to get safe abortion services. It doesn't even allow the law or the policymakers to put in place accessible and affordable abortion services, because it all starts with the law. If, for instance, we are going to create awareness about safe abortion services, then it has to be done within a legal environment that permits that. Right? But the legal environment that we have right now is restrictive because it largely criminalizes abortion.
Okay. Susan, something that you mentioned, and yes, the university students might be saying it's okay to have this abortion. I mean, we have found out that a number of them are just taking the pill, the morning after pill every single day like it's a vitamin of late. But also the fact that we have parents in homes where maybe, as you mentioned, an uncle ends up defiling a child or raping a girl in the house, and they won't give the option of abortion but say keep the child, because for a particular generation we live with, there are the millennials who are saying it's okay to have the abortion, but then we have the other people who are saying no, a child is a gift from God, you have to keep this child, we shall raise this child, somehow things will happen, but they're not for abortion, because those are the people now we need to be dealing with.
I would say that it goes back to the issue of physical and mental health, because yes, you're going to coerce me into carrying this pregnancy to term, but then what does that do to me psychologically? And even when I bear that child, and this is a child that I know was born out of violence, and I'm never ever actually going to love that child. I'm sure there are people who will tell you stories of, oh, I wanted to abort, but then I had a change of heart, and now I'm happy with my child. But there are several other women who will tell you, I was forced to keep the pregnancy to term, and I had the child, and I detest my child. So then what is the essence of that, of having that child, if there is no parental bond with them, and they're not getting the parental love and care that they actually deserve? So at the end of the day, it goes down to physical and mental health as well. And that is why our law is restrictive, because it actually tends to focus a lot on physical life, but life, as has been interpreted by courts in different jurisdictions, including Uganda, goes beyond just physical life. Your life has to be meaningful, and the meaningfulness of life goes a lot to your mental health and psychological well-being.
Susan, with that said, of course, valid points right there, but someone would say, okay, fine, we push for the legalization of safe abortion, then what next? Already we're having a huge chain of, unscrupulous, quote unquote, quacks or medical doctors who are procuring these abortions every single year. If you're having a number of that huge number of 300,000, it shows that there's someone who is not doing their job right in terms of cracking them down, in terms of making sure that this space is actually regulated. 300,000 abortions. So if it's legalized and we've not sorted out the issue of quacks, are we not just adding fuel into this burning furnace?
Actually, the quacks exist because it is criminalized, because the quack is doing the abortion clandestinely.
So we're talking of a quack who is not. We're talking of a quack who is not a registered medical practitioner, right? So if we legalize this and we say that fine, you can go to a licensed hospital to procure your abortion, then will this quack stop their operations really?
Well, I believe that would actually be one of the most immediate outcomes of legalizing abortion, because the main reason why the women and girls go to them is because they can't actually go to a health center which is well facilitated with qualified medical personnel and boldly say, I need abortion services. Because then, they're going to get shunned by the health worker themselves, because the health workers also are afraid to offer these services, even when it's legal for them to do that, because post-abortion care services, for example, are not illegal. For example, if a young woman or girl comes to you, they've tried to self-induce an abortion, but then things go wrong, and then they come to you because they're in a life-threatening situation. As a health worker, you have to complete that abortion. But because of the law and the stigma that is surrounding abortion issues, health workers actually shun and turn away those young women and girls who run to them. So you realize that a lot of times when the woman has decided, that's why I say that it's much better to actually put in place a law that allows any woman who wants to have an abortion to actually have it. Because when a woman has decided that I'm going to get rid of this pregnancy, come hell or high water, they will, and that is how they end up going to the quacks, who are going to ask them for very little money, do things.
Thank you for mentioning the money bit. The money bit, because and we're getting a lot of feedback. Of course, we'll be jumping to David Rukasi, and people are saying, okay, fine, we legalize it, then what? Are we going to then have a conversation whereby we say that then we need to make services of safe abortion free, like a majority of the healthcare public centers where going to deliver a child is actually free? Because then if we don't look into the issue of cost, as much as we are legalizing it, young women who cannot afford it will still go to the quacks who are cheap to afford.
Yes, it goes back to the issue of quacks. When you have a law that actually clearly provides for safe abortion services, even the quacks will be regulated. It will have regulations that will be able to curb the practices of the quack doctors, first and foremost. But also, it will enable the policymakers to actually incorporate accessibility in terms of making the services more affordable. We do have the new issue that is coming up of universal health coverage, where they're actually trying to make develop what I would call healthcare scheme, something that is, I would say, is equivalent to the Obamacare scheme that was there in the United States. So it's something similar to that, where health services are made accessible to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, at either no cost or very, very minimal cost.
Okay.
Yes. So if you have a law that is favorable, then even the policymakers who are doing everything they can to incorporate these new health schemes, like the universal health coverage scheme, will be able to incorporate safe abortion services into that scheme.
All right.
And it will be affordable for every woman who needs it, and it will even be easier to educate the poor women in rural areas who don't even know the first thing about sexual reproductive health rights, to create the awareness.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We do have David Rukasi who has feedback for us. He will tell us what you're telling us, Rita.
Now, over to the fact that if we talk about safe abortions within the country, we can't say we can have safe abortions unless it's legalized, and that's the question we're asking you on our social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter. Twitter on NTV Uganda. Now, David is going to be sampling these comments, and I think, once again, these comments always have me saying, should we pray for the country or should we not pray for the country? David, what is the comment? What actually are the comments on that this morning?
Well, the discussion today we're having on Kickstarter, very interesting discussion, and we're talking about a safe abortion. Should it or should it not be promoted? And what are your thoughts? Very interesting thoughts coming through on Twitter. Promoted? No, but I think it should be legalized to reduce on the consequences of unsafe abortion, and this ranges from death, uterus damages, among others. That is from Olive Gracious. Another one comes in from Aaron. Aaron says whether safe whether safe or unsafe abortion, none of the two should be legalized because evil remains the same since both encourage murder. And then Musa Jr. comes through as well and says safe abortion remains murder and the Bible is against this. Don't kill one another, the Bible says. See, then we're quoting Bibles this morning. Musa Jr., thank you very much for that comment. Another one coming in from Masi Joan, codename Onini. You say safely aborting what could have been avoided. No, it shouldn't unless on medical grounds where the mother's life is at risk. Others, this will accelerate sex among the masses. Give our girls pads before you give them free condoms, and don't legalize abortion. It's evil. I think we've Susan has sort of touched on this when it comes to medical grounds, and it looks like Onini here agrees or shares the same thought with you. What's your take? Do you think that abortions or safe abortions should be promoted? Should they or should they not be promoted? Get to our Twitter handle at NTV Uganda. The hashtag is morning at NTV. On Facebook as well at NTV Uganda. And give us your thoughts. We'll share more as the show goes on. Today on Kickstarter, that's the topic we're having. We want to find out from you and from Susan we have here in the studio on whether safe abortions should or should not be promoted.
Now, to wrap up the conversation on what you have been saying and also what we are asking, which is, should we legalize abortions within the country? One thing remains. If it happens, what grounds should we now be looking at? Because we can't simply say everyone can have an abortion when they want to because they want to. Right now, the only person who would be allowed to actually have an abortion is a woman whose health could be affected by carrying this child and her life at the end of the day. So what are the measures that we should be looking at if we say let's legalize abortion within the country, Susan?
I think wholesomely the measures that the exceptions that we should look at to permit abortion would be one, physical life, but also mental and physical health, as well as sexual violence. That would cover rape, incest, defilement. Yes.
Okay, so within those confines.
Yes.
Okay, and over and above that, in terms of the policy framework, you've mentioned that countries that have gone ahead of us and legalized safe abortions actually have recorded the lowering of the incidences of unsafe abortions. But what then should be put in that particular framework, just to ensure that we achieve that and not see the numbers going higher in return? What should be put in the policy framework pretty much?
I think if you have that in the policy framework, then it's upon the medical personnel or the health workers that are charged with offering these services to make sure that actually those particular grounds actually fulfilled by the person that comes seeking the abortion services. So it's a matter of putting in place regulatory frameworks and guidelines for the health workers that offer these services. Right. But also just to highlight, even in those countries where it was legalized, not just this safe abortion, unsafe abortions lowered, but also abortions generally. And a good example I can give is Poland, which is a strong, staunch Catholic country. So I think people should think twice when they put forward the issue of religion above the life and health of a woman.
Wow, the pros and cons. Rita, we've interacted with ladies who have undergone safe abortions, and even the post-traumatic phase is something that no one should go through. Like, you'd never wish it on your worst enemy. And I think, like you're saying, with the enactment or the enforcement, if at all it's legalized, I think even the health system should, check that, such that even if you procure an abortion safely, then they walk through the journey with you, because the psychological status is totally messed up, even with safe abortions. Thank you so much for coming in studios.
Right. Now, the conversation about abortion has been going on for years. It continues to go on for years. Hopefully, maybe something will be changing within our country at some point. But thank you so much for your comments. You can continue with the conversation using the hashtag #MorningAtNTV. If you agree, if you disagree, either way, your opinion is welcome. Morning at NTV continues, and we'll be coming back with a conversation about domestic violence.
You're watching Morning at NTV.